And for more, we now speak to Dr Ronesh Dhawraj, SABC News research editor. Very good morning to you, Dr Dhawraj, for making the time to speak to us. Just from a research point of view, you've taken a look at the report just to manage the expectations of South Africans in terms of this process going forward, because it really is a process now, isn't it?
Absolutely, Desiree. Good morning, and good morning to your panel as well. Obviously, none of us slept last night. A very busy news day for all of us. It's going to continue as we progress towards the ANC's 55th National Conference. But, you know, I was on social media last night, lots of buzz, lots of other politicians making comments, all kind of assertions. We had Julius Malema, Floyd Shivambu, Tony Yengeni, and, you know, politicians from other political parties, the DA included, Action SA as well. So obviously this first started off, you know, around June this year. We had Arthur Fraser, you know, laying those charges against the president at a Pretoria police station, alleging that this crime actually happened back in Feb 2020. And obviously it's very opportunistic as well. If you look at the timelines, why now? The crime happened in Feb 2020 at the president's Limpopo farm, but why now, just 6 or 5 months towards the ANC's national conference? So you have to ask yourself those kind of questions as well. Why now? So what happened was that the ATM, the African Transformation Movement, a small party within the National Assembly with just 2 seats, they proposed the motion, and the Speaker considered that motion, and that's how we saw the formation of the Section 89 independent panel headed by the former Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo. So obviously that's the history. There was a deadline. The panel missed that deadline by around 2 weeks, and the deadline was extended to the 30th of November. And obviously we saw the media briefing yesterday and the outcomes of that panel report. So as Abra said in her insert earlier on, obviously the deliberations around this report, the recommendations, will happen sometime next week, December 6th. And from there, if there's, you know, if the report is adopted, then there will be an impeachment committee formed, and that impeachment committee, you know, is the Speaker will actually choose the members of the impeachment committee, the size of that impeachment committee, and every political party that has representation in the National Assembly. I think the last time I checked, it was 14 parties. So the Speaker will determine, you know, which parties, you know, all of those 14 parties, what kind of representation they have on that impeachment committee. And obviously the last step after, if that impeachment committee finds that there is a case for the president to answer, then obviously the House will need a 2/3 majority to actually impeach President Cyril Ramaphosa.
I want to actually just broaden the conversation now, of course, because this is such a big story today. We have also brought in the SABC political editor, Mr. Mzwandile Mpeche. Good morning to you and welcome to the agenda. And before we start chatting to you, let's bring up some of those recommendations in case you've just caught up with us. This is what has come out of that Section 89 independent panel that handed over that report to the Speaker of the National Assembly yesterday. And then last night, members of Parliament receiving what was inside that report. And these are the key recommendations. This information discloses prima facie that the President may have committed a serious violation of Section 96(2)(a), a serious violation of Section 34(1) of PRECA. Those are some of the recommendations. And then we've got more of these as well. And we're going to keep bringing them up throughout the conversation. But there was a tone yesterday, Mr. Mpeche, when we saw the report handed over to the National Assembly Speaker, that we didn't know what was in that report, and it seemed that Justice Ngcobo was saying, I'm not going to get into it. A lot of people on social media saying, okay, he's going to be exonerated. Were you surprised by the findings?
Well, I think the issue of Phala Phala and what has been happening around it has been, I think, of great concern to the generality of South Africans, because there are so many questions. Other than the leaders who've been asking questions, even ordinary South Africans have been asking questions to say, yes, we hear what you are saying, but we don't understand the circumstances under which it even happened. I mean, people were asking why, I mean, they would ask basic questions like, you are not allowed to keep a certain amount of money, so why did that happen? You know, those basic questions. And then to say, if that didn't happen, why was it not reported?
I remember a headline
yes.
that said, are the exchange control going to be...
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
the death nail.
some of those simple questions, and a lady, that people were asking. So everyone got curious to say, exactly what was this? So that's why everyone wanted to hear what the judge was going to say. But of course, the judge had to be very clear insofar as the impeachment process is concerned. I think Dr. Ronesh has touched on the importance of the impeachment. You know, the impeachment process is a very long, complicated process. For you to be able to remove the president, you would need a 2/3. And not just a 2/3, after going through a number of processes. So I don't know if anyone would want to subject themselves to that.
But Mr. Mbeja, having said that, considering that in Parliament, a motion was won to have the Panel 89 process. How is the ANC interrogating how far this has come and its implications?
I think this was going to happen. On Tuesday, they are discussing this. And I think they'll probably take a vote on this. And given the history of what we know, how they have defended their presidents, I don't honestly see them passing this through. I know that perhaps it's me being just thinking my way. Given that the ANC is having a conference in 2 weeks, I think it would be very difficult for them to expose their president. I know there are people there, it's not uniform, but there will be those who would want this to go on. But if you look at the balance of forces, which they like to say, you will see that. Yeah.
Dr. Dhawraj, I want to ask you a question here. Considering that from the determination that there's a prima facie case to a prosecutable case, there could be, like Mzwai says, long processes there. What happens in the interim?
I think that's the question that's going to baffle all of us, because as we know, the ANC's national conference is just 2 weeks away. We've had lots of assertions, lots of allegations from ANC people, senior leaders saying that the step-aside rule within the ANC is selectively being applied. And obviously, they're taking pot shots at the sitting ANC president, President Cyril Ramaphosa. If you juxtapose him against Dr. William Kize, who's also in the running for the presidency, if you look at all the provincial nominations that came out just last week, then he can also have a similar case to say that I was not criminally charged for the digital vibe scandal, yet people want me to step aside. And then the issue of Ace Makshila, but obviously he appeared in court. There were 3 instances of where he was criminally charged with regard to a case that dates back a couple of years. So the question is going to be asked, as we move up to the conference, why is the president being treated with kids' gloves? And I think it's going to be very, very important. We need to watch the space very, very closely as we move up to the 16th of December. Like Mzwai, the politics editor, said as well, it's going to be a very long process, very tedious process. And if you look at numbers, in the National Assembly as well, the ANC is the dominant party. So if you're looking at the 2/3 majority, if it comes to impeachment, possible impeachment of the president, so we're looking at a number, if my maths is correct, it's around 264. The ANC currently is sitting with 240. So the ANC, the ANC caucus will highly likely protect their president. That's what I can see, from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, we're going to take some calls. And of course, it's interesting that Mr. Mbeja and Dr. Dhawraj, you've also touched on what the ANC could possibly do. But let's remember that over the past few weeks, we certainly have seen former leadership of the African National Congress touching on this matter. And in a moment, we're going to play you a clip of where we've seen that take place. But we are also taking your calls on 011-714-0661. Let's hear from Tembi, who's called in. Tembi, good morning to you, Siswami. Welcome to the agenda. Khuluma, Siswami.
Mina into engicabanga ukuthi irong lana. UFraser nje kokuqala lento ayenza wayijuthiwe ukuthi akayenze lento liyiskandal. Number two, okay, mina ezikhungu ka-ANC ngimdala nje ngiyi-veteran ANC. Lento ngiyibona ingayinhle. Kuzobadlena ku-ANC kuyoze kube nini ngoba from the start kube ucomrade uMadiba comrade Madiba kwalandela uThabo Mbeki kwabalandela ucomrade uZuma naye benezinto zakhe kubele kugala kala no Ramaphosa manje ifubheka ucomrade Cyril Ramaphosa izinto azenzayo elokhuzaneni kwi-ANC nakuhulumeni mina ngicabanga ukuthi uthathe ilokhuzane ekutshela ukuthi akathathe iqhathi lokuthi kuboshwa amakriminali adimali kahulumeni manje bamzondela loo nto ukuthi bayaboshwa manje bamshayela iy'nkandla no-Fraser lapha into engishoyo u-ANC uzoyaphi u-ANC thina samalungu ka-ANC lethi siqedele ithemba ukuthi sivotele i-ANC ngoba lento abayenza babulathi inhlangano.
Okay, thank you so much for calling, Sister Tembi. Just to translate quickly what she said, she started at the beginning there saying the first point that she wanted to make was that what Arthur Fraser did has indeed caused a scandal. That was the first
but also
key point
asking
that
a
she's
pertinent
made.
question, where is the ANC going to go?
That was the second point that she made, that we've had all these leaders, each president having their own scandal. Where's the ANC going?
We have another caller on the line calling us from Randburg. You want to remain anonymous. What's on your mind this morning?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. You know what's my concern? My concern is about the government. ANC, their president. We are coming from, from the history from Mandela there, Thabo Mbeki, Zuma, President Zuma, and now it's President Ramaphosa. My concern is this one for Phala Phala. If the president is holding the country, and then after that the president does this, what he does now, what about the other people from the ground? The other people from the ground, what about crime? Look at the crime. Look at the corruption. If ever I've been hired in a government, and then I'm doing corruption, I would say, the president up there, deal with them, deal with the president, and then come down and deal with us here, people doing the corruption, because everyone in the government is going to be corrupt, and then we are not going anywhere with ANC.
So basically, what, as a South African, are your thoughts? What should be done going forward?
What can be done going forward? Let's vote out ANC. Let's vote out ANC. People are struggling out there. Look at the squatters are increasing. Still remember when Zuma was in power, he said he's going to eradicate the whole squatter camps. But instead of eradicating the whole squatter camp, the squatter camp is increasing. Look at now, our president here, Honorable President Ramaphosa. What is he doing with a lot of money in the Phala Phala farm? What is he doing in business, actually? He's in many businesses here. We can name them. He's a president. He has to look at the country. He has to leave the businesses and then look at the corruption and eradicate the whole corruption, and then the country, it will be straightforward. But the ANC, I think, is a mandate. The corruption is their mandate. When you go to the police station, it's no. Let's vote ANC out, please. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for that call. We're joined now by a political analyst, Dr. All right, we're not joined by the political analyst. We're joined by a reputation expert, Tshepo Matseba from Reputation First. Tshepo, thank you so much for joining us. We seem to have lost that screen. Mzwayi, I just want to ask you quickly, on a day like this, all of those calls we're getting would be talking about World AIDS Day, just in terms of South Africa's responses to World AIDS Day, a very important conversation in the country. Our conversation not only has been diverted, but the presidency has also sent out a statement saying that the programs of the day, the Deputy President, David Mabuza, in his position as chair of the big AIDS body in the country, he's not going through anymore. The health minister is going through. Yesterday, we got a missive that the president was cancelling his interaction with the president of Brazil. Can we put the dots together here? Are we going to expect a big announcement?
I mean, the first inclination, Desiree, was when that statement came that the state visit is not going ahead, the incoming one from Venezuela. So it did give you an indication.
Apologies, I said Brazil, it's Venezuela.
It's Venezuela, yes. Yeah. Indeed, it gave you an inclination of where we are, because the report is going to be debated on the 6th, and the state visit was going to happen on the 6th. Just look at the optics, it was going to be very, very bad. They're deciding your future, you're hosting somebody, what if they fire you? What does it mean? But the bigger context is almost all the programs or public programs have been cancelled. So that tells you of the difficulty and the country is grappling with now. The president, his executive, they need to sit down, they need to discuss what they're doing. So what's the next course of action?
Is it that they're discussing, or is it that decisions are being made already?
In fact, this is what they've said. He is considering this carefully in the interest of the stability of government. The announcement will be coming in the next few, maybe hours or days, but I can tell you it should come much, much sooner, because South Africans are anxious. They want to know what's happening. Yeah. Even his program in Parliament is no longer happening. So that tells you that this issue needs to be attended as soon as possible. But besides the government, he has a vehicle that sent him there, the ANC. It's meeting this evening. It is important to hear what they have to say. They may not be definitive in what they're going to say, because they are 2 weeks away from an even bigger structure. I suspect they'll probably dilly-dally and say, maybe let's defer to the higher structure. But the fact of the matter is that the president himself, the president himself right now is the one who needs to give direction. Is he fighting it out, or he's stepping back?
And that's what we stand to see. Tshepo Matsiba, you are an expert with reputation first. We're getting reports that the rand is being battered by developments on the political side. What are we looking at in terms of, do we separate the person from the country, just in terms of reputation? And what repercussions have you seen already?
Yeah, so thank you so much for the opportunity, Desiree. Good morning. So we can't separate, unfortunately, from reputation, at least perspective, the president from the country in this context. And that's because you are the president of the country, whether you're online or offline. And so your conduct offline and your conduct online remains the same, and it has the same effect on the image and reputation of the country. Now, you've already seen you may have seen publications such as the New York Times, which are influential in that market, are already running with the story of an impeachment of a South African president. And that means that investors are beginning to look at this and pay closer attention to the story. And in the world of reputation, perceptions matter. And we know that perceptions drive markets and not necessarily the facts. And so there's no investor who's going to invest hours reading and studying this 3-volume report. They're going to read what they read in the media, in their own media. They're going to listen to their own analysts. They're going to take advice, and that advice is often based on perceptions. And so it's very, very hard and probably even unreasonable to expect that markets will make a distinction between a sitting president and a country that they represent, especially when they position themselves as a corruption buster. And now they're facing such a serious allegations. The impact is that this casts doubts on some very serious developments, especially the recent trip to the UK, where the president actually made a serious investment pleas and support, and then of course it has a direct impact, of course, on this new energy plan, just energy plan that the president presented, and then that, as people said in Europe, the world was excited about and they're very happy about. But when you have serious allegations such as this, doubts come into the picture, and it's those doubts that determine how our economy performs in the short term, and those doubts that impact the image of our country in the long term.
There certainly has been a lot of discussion around what is the ANC going to do from now onwards. And that's the reality. Is they're going into the elective conference. They need to make a decision now about how they treat the president in-house. And we're going to take some calls, 011-714-0661. We've got some Skhumbuzo on the line in Lenasia. Skhumbuzo, good morning to you.
Morning, how are you, ma'am?
I'm well, sir. What are your thoughts?
Yes, my thought is that all the leadership of the ANC, they must get arrested. Not even one of them. They've got scandals, all of them. Nobody, even in prison, he's got his own scandal. We don't even want to hear the same Zuma in the leadership. Now, all of them, they must be arrested. ANC must start afresh and get a new leadership from the youth. That's all.
Yeah, Skhumbuzo, thank you so much for calling. I touched on this. The leadership of the African National Congress in and of itself has been speaking about this Phala Phala issue, saying we do need to look at it. We're going to quickly play you a clip of former President Thabo Mbeki, former President of the African National Congress, speaking on really why we can't ignore this issue. And it's been something that's been coming for a very long time. When the former leaders of the ANC started speaking out against the president, what you saw was the African National Congress saying to these leaders, let's deal with things in-house. But they spoke out nonetheless. Let's take a look at this.
If they say he's got a case to answer, what do we do? Bill? Because the population out there, its own conclusion will be, that's something wrong there. Wrong, maybe wrongly, because indeed somebody must be innocent until proven guilty. The fact that a panel like that says that, it does not mean it's correct. But I'm saying you put out a notion like that, coming from this team of senior lawyers, all of them are lawyers, and they say we've looked at what we have, what we can, and it seems to us there's a case to answer. The leadership of the ANC cannot avoid meeting to discuss the question. In the light of that, what do we do? Do we say to the president he must step aside? Or do we say no? Let it continue through the courts, through the parliamentary process. What's the impact of that on the ANC, in the public mind? I'm saying, comrades, one of the matters that people are saying perhaps a defining moment, a defining event, because they are asking this question, what kind of leadership is going to come out of that?
What kind of leadership is going to come out of this entire process?
Yeah. Let's take some calls. 011-714-0662. We've got a caller on the line. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Give us your name and tell us your thoughts.
From KZN.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the agenda.
Welcome. Thank you very much, ma'am. Mine is simple, ma'am. I think as a country, we are in a very difficult time. I think all of us, we must come together and have a proper discussion. In this matter, looking what you have just had, the former President Mbeki and others. So I think we must say, how can we come out of the situation now?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for calling. Dr. Dhawraj, I want to bring you in here. The bulk of the callers have said that the ANC leadership is not satisfactory. And this is the reality, is that you've got a party here that is at odds with itself, it seems. In your view, what are the discussions that the ANC needs to be having with the public, particularly, to show that it doesn't have a leadership vacuum at such an imperative time, 2 weeks before an elective conference and just over a year into an all-important national election?
Thanks, Naledi. I think perceptions are very, very important, especially for the ANC. The ANC, we saw what happened last year in the 2021 local government elections. The ANC was hammered. It achieved the lowest vote percentage since 1994 when the ANC came into power, albeit at local government elections. Turnout was very depressed last year. The ANC touched 47%. So obviously, perception management is very important, like Seppo alluded to earlier on. And I think the bigger picture is the 2024 general elections. Cyril Ramaphosa has a certain image of himself. He brought into the picture when he became the ANC's deputy president in 2012, Mangaung, and then obviously he became president at Nasrec in 2017. There was a reason why Cyril Ramaphosa was included, was brought back from business into the folds of the ANC, NEC or the top six. If you take your minds back to when Jacob Zuma was still ANC president and president of the country, what happened in, I think it was 2016, 2017, Jackson Mthembu even said, if anyone is to blame about what the ANC is going through, it's not Jacob Zuma alone as the ANC president, it's the entire NEC, the National Executive Committee of the ANC. And I still believe so, that it's not only Cyril Ramaphosa's problem, it is also the blame squarely lies at the feet of the National Executive Committee of the ANC firstly, and then the National Working Committee of the ANC, which is kind of a subcommittee of the NEC that kind of does all the practical work dished out by the NEC. So what the ANC needs to do as they go towards the conference in 2 weeks is re-examine, reignite that debate within their circles, because you've got a very close group of around 86 people in that NEC. Something needs to change and something has to change. If this does not happen, then 2024 elections, we've got the EFF biting at the heels of the ANC. We've got other parties wanting to pull the ANC down to 50%. And if that happens, should that happen, then obviously coalition politics will be forced at national and provincial government level. So I think the ANC needs some really deep introspection come 2 weeks when they sit for that 55th National Conference at Nasrec.
Tshepo Matseba, you specialize in reputation, but optics are very important. I think just so instructive that your background has Bob Marley in the background, who sang about so much trouble in the world. What's the way forward for Cyril Ramaphosa just in terms of preserving his reputation?
Yeah, one of the things that former President Thabo Mbeki said was that the image in the mind of the customer, the mind of the public, is very important. And so the starting point actually in creating a reasonable image, it would not in the context of the ANC's step aside rule, but would be for him to consider distancing himself from the processes so that the processes can unfold. That would be a fair starting point, and that way you create an impression at least that you are giving the relevant authorities the space to investigate and to probe without fear or favor. And when you do that, you give the public an opportunity to rebuild and reconsider trust, because at this point in time, trust seems to have been broken, and people don't, voters don't vote on the basis also of facts all the time. They vote on the basis of what they feel, and trust is a very important in the context of feeling. And so the starting point is probably to move aside a little bit so that the processes can unfold. Speaking from the position of power and authority at this point in time won't necessarily yield results. The opportunity to say nothing happened has long passed. In fact, earlier on, he was supposed to have been far more upfront with information about the specific situation. And then importantly, for the ANC, they need to remember that they are the organization of scandals. The entire state capture report is riddled, and as we've seen, was riddled with the ANC itself as an organization. Its image has been tainted. All the leaders, or in fact, most of the leaders who were running for the top job in the presidency, at least, had some kind of a scandal around them, and or some kind of an investigation around them. And so maybe the future really is paved through authenticity and telling it like it is, being transparent and honest with your stakeholders and your customers, so that at least at a bare minimum, some level of trust can be regained.
Tshepo, thank you so much for your time this morning. He's MD of Reputation First, just in terms of looking at the impacts of this development on both the person and the country.